Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Mike Turzai, the Republican from Pennsylvania, has this to say about voter suppression ID laws. Clip
voter
number.
ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
All right. And here's Glenn Grotham, the state senator from Wisconsin, saying that the voter suppression ID laws will help Romney in that state.
Do you think it might ultimately help Romney's campaign here in the state?
I think we believe that insofar as there is inappropriate things going on, people vote inappropriately, I'm more likely to vote Democrat.
So if these protections are in place of voter ID, that might ultimately help him in a close race.
Right. It's all about helping Romney. Judson Phillips is on the line with us, theteaparty.net, attorney and associate director of the teaparty.net, founder of Tea Party Nation. Judson, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
I don't get the cost versus benefit equation here, and maybe you can enlighten me. Typically, when we look at the cost of something, we ask ourselves, or when we look at the benefit of something, we ask ourselves, what is the cost of that? Whether it's the amount of mercury coming out of a power plant, or whether it's a speed limit, or, whether it's the drinking age, whatever it may be. And we have, with the best efforts, over $70 million spent over an 8-year period of 93 federal prosecutors running full-time operations out of their offices across the United States during the Bush administration. With the very best efforts of the federal government, we have maybe 30, 40 people a year in the United States who are voting fraudulently. And typically, they are people who either are voting on behalf of their spouse, either because they don't like their spouse's politics or because their spouse has dementia, or they are felons who didn't realize that in the state they are on, they've been released from, they can't vote. And if they get caught, they go back to prison. So it's kind of a dumb thing. Given that that's the risk that we're facing, why come up with a cost, to keep those 15 people a year from voting? Why come up with a cost that's going to throw 5 million mostly Democratic voters off the roll?
Well, it's not going to throw people off the roll. Look, what the benefit of these laws is having fair and accurate elections. And, whether we
have that now.
We do?
Yes. I'm telling you,
Really?
George W. Bush spent $74 million looking for examples of election fraud, and what he came up with was Ann Coulter. She was registered at her agent's office.
Yeah,
Mitt Romney, he was registered, he was living in a mansion in California, the one that he's put an elevator in for his wife's second Cadillac, but he registered to vote in Massachusetts in his son's unfinished basement. He no longer owned real estate in Massachusetts, just so he bragged about this in the primaries, just so he could vote against Teddy Kennedy. That's voter fraud.
No, voter fraud is when you have in Colorado, as they documented, 12,000 non-citizens registered to vote, and at least 5,000 of them in the election voted. Voter fraud when
not true. Couldn't be.
Yes, it is.
How many of those people were prosecuted, Judson?
Zero, as far as I know.
Right. So then you don't have any basis to assert that there are crimes. Certainly, there are people on the voting rolls who shouldn't be there. There are people on the voting rolls who are dead because we don't clean them up all that often. There's people who've moved, all kinds of things like that. But to actually have somebody show up and say, "I'm going to commit voter fraud. I am not eligible to vote, but I'm going to go in and vote anyway." That just doesn't happen in America with any kind of frequency. And as well as I do, these statistics are not a secret. The Republican Party brags about them. The percent, about a fifth of African Americans in the United States of voting age don't have the kind of ID that many of these state laws would require. About slightly less than a fifth of Hispanics in America don't have them. Slightly more than a fifth, almost a third of people over 75 years old don't have the kind of ID. These are and the same kind of percentage for people under 24 years old. These are constituencies that typically vote for Democrats. If you're looking at white, middle-class, middle-aged guys, the voter ID, not having a voter ID drops down to around 3%. So, best way to rig an election, is deciding who can vote.
Yeah, and you missed one key Democratic constituency, dead people. I mean, and unfortunately, dead people have this really hard time getting good IDs. I mean, just
please name one dead person who has voted.
How's Eric Holder? James O'Keefe from Project Veritas showed up on DC's primary day. His rep did. Got Holder's ballot. Now, he didn't put it back because he didn't want to violate the law.
That's the whole point. He didn't want to break the law. He would have gone to prison. What James O'Keefe tried to do was voter fraud, and he didn't. And nobody else did either because they don't want to go to jail either. That's not a reason to throw 5 million people off the rolls.
The part we want is a fair and accurate election.
You have that.
No, we don't. Look, in the state of Nevada, Acorn has been convicted, and one of its senior vice presidents were convicted of filing at least 60,000 fraudulent voter registrations.
Acorn was the one who was turning in the people who were fraudulently registering. Get your facts right, Judson.
Hey, Tom, my friend. Acorn was convicted in the Circuit Court of Las Vegas. I get the county of Las Vegas, but they were convicted there, as was their senior vice president. Now, why would
not
they
a
be
chance?
In?
Not a chance. Acorn has never been, and besides that, Acorn doesn't even exist anymore. This is all, and again, Acorn, oh my God, it's mostly black people registering mostly black people, right?
Hey, Tom, Acorn was convicted, like I said. I'll bet you a steak dinner on it. I'll bring the proof with me. If you're going to be on the show tomorrow night, I'll bring it with me.
If you're that certain, I don't bet, Judson, but if you're that certain of it, I will stipulate that you're right. Then let's put those people in jail.
They actually got probation. They weren't put in. You can't put a corporation in jail, but the lady whose name escapes me right now, she got a couple of years.
So you got one person who was convicted. You got one person who was convicted of it. But how many people have shown up to vote who were not legal to vote?
Colorado, that's one example I gave you. In Cookeville, Tennessee, they had
convictions.
No. Do you have any idea how hard it is to convict somebody of illegal voting?
It's about the same as convicting somebody of robbing a bank. I mean, it's
No, it's not. You basically have to have the person confess, I voted illegally, in order to get a conviction. The law.
What are you talking about? You've got their signature on the voter rolls when they sign up. You've got to sign something to vote. Let's even stipulate, Judson. Let's stipulate that 10 or 20,000 people a year are illegally voting. Use your numbers. Is that worth throwing 5 million people off the voting rolls? Is that a reasonable cost-benefit equation?
It is worth making sure that people who are allowed to vote can vote, and people who are not allowed to vote don't vote. If you think about it, there have been a number of elections that have been extraordinarily close, including the infamous Bush v. Gore in Florida, which was decided by 537 votes. If you have 1,000 people who are voting illegally, that could throw an entire presidential election.
Well, and this is a perfect example, and thank you for bringing it up, Judson. In that election, Katherine Harris and Jeb Bush conspired to throw 60,000 African Americans off the voting rolls illegally, and those people showed up, thought they voted, they were given provisional ballots. Their votes were never counted because they had been taken off the voting rolls because somebody in Texas had a similar name and happened to be a felon. I mean, Bush would have overwhelmingly lost Florida if they hadn't rigged who could vote. And that's what's going on here, in my opinion. But Judson, my apologies for not letting you have the last word. We are at theteaparty.net is the website. Judson, thanks for dropping by.
Hey, Tom, thank you.
Okay, good luck. We'll be back.